I've seen you talk a lot about studying other disciplines, sports, military, to find lessons you can apply to investment management. Curious how you tend to apply these lessons and where. Is it hiring? Is it team building? Is it stock picking or something else? What is your general approach to studying other fields in a way that is transferable? So the first, it's a good question. The first answer is it's not every field that you should learn from. Okay. You need to learn from fields that are battle tested, right? So whenever you're studying a field, if the people that are within it, there's life and death involved, odds are what they teach you is battle tested, right? So when you hear a principle, let's say from the special forces community, two is one, one is none, where they teach you that if you're by yourself, you don't have cover in a special force operation. One is none, right? Two is one is none, right? Think about that. Um, they say slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? It's another way of thinking about how to proceed in a situation. You know, study fields that are battle tested. Okay, some fields for us that we have tested: submarine commanders, the NFL, soccer coaches, restaurants. Restaurants have failure odds that are very, very high, but yet year after year, there's a group of people that keep succeeding in it, right? What does that sound like, by the way? The investment business, right? Restaurant business has restaurant level failure odds, right? So the guys that survive in a restaurant, what do they do? What are their practices? What are their principles? What are their how do they hire? How do they fire? You know, how do they create compensation structure? How do they create culture? So you're looking for that. But let me give you some examples of how we've done it. So for this, by the way, you need a key skill in learning when you study learning. And dude, trust me, I have because I have insecurities about um, how smart I am. So I always look for ways to learn faster and better. And there's actually learning theory out there on how to do that. And when you do that, one of the first things you learn is a skill called abstraction, which is a key part of pattern recognition. If you see somebody do something, right, or say something, are you able to abstract the principles, the key practices out of what this guy is saying or girl, and then go on and apply it? And one of the things that when you study abstraction, that you get to is a concept called the ladder of abstraction. Now, when uh, you have to be careful, okay? Because in the investment business, sometimes somebody tells you to do something, and if that guy has a different personality type than you do, that probably won't work for you. So you have to try something, but understand that if you're a similar personality type, it can actually work for you. By the way, we've actually taken it to the next level where even if I learn something from somebody that's not my personality type, I'm still able to adapt to that. There's two kinds of portfolio managers: the ones that have their analysts adapt to them, or the ones that adapt to their analysts. And I'm actually very good at adapting. It drives some of my friends crazy where I'll be at dinner with two friends of mine that are very different and they're flabbergasted. He's like, how do you make money from that guy's ideas and my ideas at the same time? Like, it drives us nuts because I'm literally not able to make money from his ideas, whereas I am. But I've also trained myself to do so, by the way, and I know how to do it. And my stock selection criteria, we pick ideas from our peers that fit our stock selection criteria and my personality. So in a way, it's like creating a a a a an emergent or novel recipe. It's like his personality, my personality, we're both working on things, and it makes the idea even more special. Okay. So the ladder of abstraction says this, and it's very important, especially if you're a certain personality type to understand this, because some people, so a ladder of abstraction has many different levels, right? So if you look at a cow, right, you look at a cow, what's the lowest rang on the ladder? What is this thing? Well, it's a cow, right? But there are some personalities that if you show them a cow, they say, "Oh, it's food." So it goes from cow, but it's also food. Oh, at a higher level, it's also an environmental problem because of the methane that it has. At a higher level than that, it's cash. You can sell these cows, right? At a higher level than that, it's a business for making leather, right? So you have to learn how to look at something where you say, okay, this position, let's say this consumer stock, it's an investment, but on a portfolio basis, because it's heavily shorted, it's also a great way to balance out the shorts that I have so that on a day-to-day basis, the positions are moving kind of like this. But over time, if I'm right on the fundamentals, I'm going to capture a spread between where this long that's heavily shorted is going to trade for and where these shorts are. So you capture what's called the long short spread, right? So can you learn how to abstract? By the way, the guy that came up with ladder of abstraction is S.I. Hichikawa, who was a student of, was it Korzybski? Who was the founder of General Semantics. If ever you want to learn how to 3x your judgment, learn General Semantics. It'll fuck you up while you're learning it because you're going to start questioning everything. But when you come out of it, you'll be better off for it. Trust me. So many guys that are self-help gurus that have come up with stuff is like, wow, that's amazing. They all got their shit from General Semantics and they just never disclosed the source. Okay. So learn abstraction as a tool. That way, when you learn from the NFL and you take these analogies, you're like, okay, how do I apply that to investing? And then you're able to come up with a process to actually get shit done in investing. Okay. Okay. So what are some of the examples of stuff? How are we doing on time? I guess we're going to run over today. Bear with me. Okay. So hiring in the NFL, right? Do you guys know that in the 90s, Bill Belichick and Ernie Adams came up with a way to financially value a player in the NFL? They literally came up with, oh, this guy's worth $1 million, but we're able to pay him only 200,000. What does that sound like? It's value investing. These guys applied value investing principles to picking talent. Now, where did it come from? I actually have never spoken to either Ernie or Bill about it. But where did Ernie Adams work for before he joined the Patriots? Well, guess what? He worked actually at an investment firm with one of the legends of our business, Paul Isaac, right? And I actually believe that when these guys studied salary caps and free agency, which is the regime change that happened in the NFL, they realized that they could create a team of players that were, though really good, financially were way below the salary cap. So then they had a lot of cash left to acquire really good players, right? So when we saw that, we're like, wait, how do you value an analyst? Right? And we actually came up with ways of figuring out, oh, he has these qualities. Here's what I think he's worth. Right? And we're able to financially value an analyst. Okay, a second concept that we learned from the NFL is scouting. Guess who wrote the Bible of scouting in the NFL? Bill Belichick's dad. Have you read it? Must read. Okay, because it's literally how to scout for players that you want to hire and find their strengths and weaknesses, and also how to scout opposite teams you're playing with against, excuse me, and look for their weaknesses, right? But also there's a concept in the NFL called self-scout, meaning are you able to have the maturity and awareness to understand your own weaknesses? Brady, by the way, Tom Brady was a very powerful self scout. By the way, step back a second. One of the ways that we know that Belichick was using a way to value a player, even though he never disclosed it, is in the sixth round, when Brady was going to be selected as the legendary number 199, one of the things that Bill says is like, why is Brady on the board still? He's way too much value, meaning Bill had looked at Brady's tangibles and intangibles and said he's worth a lot more than what he could get him for, which I believe the first year Brady got paid $250,000, right? Second year it was a different number, but that's what they got him for. So it's not that Bill knew that Brady was going to be the shit. It's just that he knew that he was getting it for a cheap price and he had a lot of optionality because of that cheap price, right? So how do you apply that to investing, right? To hiring, to stock selection? If you have those analogies, you'll be able to do it. Okay, one thing that we learned in analysis and intelligence. Okay, study the way intelligence firms do analysis. How does the CIA do analysis? How does the DGSC, the French intelligence services, how does the Mossad do it? There's been plenty of guys that have left these outfits and unbelievably will write fucking books about it. Go read that. How does the MSS do it? You probably won't find any books written by MSS guys because they treat people that write books about the MSS very differently. And by the way, I would too. If I was running an intelligence outfit, there's no fucking way I would ever write anything about. But apparently, these people, you can actually buy this book, Structured Analytical Techniques, written by this guy, Richard Hoyer Jr. and Randolph Fersen. Now, both those guys happen to be running an outfit where the CIA sends their analysts to be trained. Now, would it be worth you going to train with them? What do you think? Okay. By the way, also in this, right, one of our key tools is in here. We learned it from them. It's on page 52, chronologies and timelines, right? It ends up that it gives you the method on how to do timeline analysis, which is a key part of what we do. So if you write a stock, you list the key timing points, and it's crazy how often a bunch of things will happen. You're like, we got to buy this thing like right now, right? It's not a panacea, but it does happen way more than 3, 4 times a year, and it's enough to give you a slight edge timing wise. Okay. And poker, one of my best lessons in poker was to find weaker players to bet against. Okay, like you don't want to sit down at poker and have Doyle Brunson, Negreanu, who's the black kid whose name I forget right now, who's very, very good. Is that the kind of table? Or do you want to go play against rich guys with big egos that don't know how to play poker and are preferably drinking while they're playing poker? You pick. Okay. Well, what is that for investing? Right? Very important. Okay. Warren Buffett, if you don't know who the sucker is at the poker table, you're the sucker. But what's the analogy? The analogy is like find a table full of suckers. Who is that in the investment business? Right? Who are the people that, as a function of what they do, are going to lose the money that you're going to make? We call that in our business the prime pattern, right? Which is who, like for example, there are people that pump up these shitcos to stratospheric valuations, where economically speaking, these businesses are never going to generate the free cash flow that they need to generate. It's not going to happen. These things will come down at some point. Is that a good area to go find shorts in? It is. It requires other finesse. It requires timing. It requires position size. It requires technical analysis. It requires fundamental work. But generally, it's a pretty good field to go into. Having that philosophy in poker matters. Having that philosophy in the military. In the military, Hackworth has a great saying. He says, if you find yourself in a fair fight, you haven't planned your mission properly. When you're responsible for other men's lives, it's your duty to fight unfair fights. Okay? The same with capital. If you're responsible for other people's capitals, it's your duty to compete against morons. Okay? By the way, I always say the height of that philosophy is to know when you're the one that's the moron, right? And you take advantage of that by doing the opposite. I think it's Druck that has a saying. Yeah, it is Druck. I always forget if it's Druck or Soros. Sometimes I quote one and I get a call. It's like, that wasn't me, dude. Um, um, but you want to be the first to realize you're wrong. Okay, very important. Okay. Um, Submarine commanders, you can learn a lot from that. The Bezos memo process. So we love to learn from operators. Bezos has these processes that are worth covering. There's literally a book about this. It's called Working Backwards. Um, Must read. The whole process are involved. We use that. And then studying writers. These are all fields that we've studied, and you learn from that and then go apply it.